I want to share with you a reading from Whispers from Eternity, Yogananda's magical book of poems and prayer demands. You know, he said there are three great scriptures that he draws all inspiration from and recommended. The Bhagavad Gita, of course, the Christian Bible scripture, and Whispers from Eternity, which he said were given to him all directly from God. This has blessed me that I may know that I am dreaming, even though my senses tell me I am awake. As we rest and sleep, wake in the morning to our daily round of desperate seeming but only half-conscious activity, then fall back to sleep again at night, so also do we pass fleetingly from birth to life to death again, waking ever and again in new bodies, dashing about our appointments and other commitments, delighting in them or groaning at their importunity, then finding ourselves forced to leave everything at death's next summons, dream after dream of ceaseless earthly struggles. On the sleigh of incarnations, we find ourselves sliding by hopes and disappointments, victories and failures, fulfillments and disillusionments. When the smooth snow of easy passage melts and the underlying ice of insecurity breaks, we find ourselves plunged into heaving seas, eddies of gay then desperate laughter, sargassos of cloying involvements, vast calms of indifference. Ah, all only dreams. When at last I awoke in thee, I discovered that I'd been dreaming all along. I'd only thought I was awake. Okay, look out for those cloying sargassos. When I first met Swami Kriyananda, it was in 2009 at Ananda Village, and I was very fortunate to have a private meeting with him in his apartment at the Crystal Hermitage. And I was very much a deer in the headlights in front of his great self, but in his humble and kind way, he blessed me, and he said, "There's nothing very different about you and me." He said, "I'm in this 80-year-old body, and you're in this 20-year-old body, but we are both seeking the same thing." And he said, "Perhaps I've been at it a little longer than you, but we are really the same." I've reflected over the years what a blessing that was, and the insights that in our souls, each of us are seeking the same thing, and we are one in spirit. On another occasion, a little girl came up to Swamiji again. He was in his old age, and she said in a little cheeky way, "How old are you?" And he replied with a little cheek of his own, "Let's put it this way." Swami said, "When I was a little boy, you were an old woman." And the little girl went away kind of puzzled. But he was imparting to her again that the soul is ageless and deathless and moves through reincarnations, through time and space, and that we are not, as it appears to be, this person, this personality, and this bundle of self-definitions. Paramahansa Yogananda said that we are here in this world for education and entertainment. And then again, Riley, he added, "But how few are either educated or entertained." And as for entertainment, there's a plenty in this world of all kinds. But the one thing I'll say that is a magnificent teaching of our path is that we are here to enjoy everything with the joy of God. This is a life existence affirming path. It's not to say that we are here to indulge our desires and fantasies and every whim, but that done with moderation, with discernment, with self-control, we can and should enjoy the pleasures and the joys of this life, always referring back to the infinite joy of God. And what a fun teaching and way to live. That, as Yogananda said, if we find something that makes us happy, if we're enjoying a nice meal or a beautiful moment in nature or with our loved ones, that we can take that joy inside, refer it back to the joy of God, and he said, like a bubble, expand it with our breath and our awareness until it becomes even a taste of that infinite joy of God. As to education, the primary focus of our existence here, again, how few are educated in this world, seeking things that will not give them fulfillment or happiness or peace. And yet the soul goes on and on through this university of life, seeking education. And we may be here to learn many lessons throughout life. And most of us, especially as spiritual seekers, are aware pretty consciously of what we're here to learn. And if we're not, then Divine Mother will make sure to make us aware. But it may only be a few things, or one or two even things that we're really here to learn in this life. These are big lessons of overcoming ego consciousness. And if we are self-honest, if we introspect, if we are vulnerable before God, and perhaps with each other and our loved ones and our spiritual family, then we can expose and offer those parts of ourselves that we are here to grow and ultimately transcend. And this is the journey of reincarnation. You know, reincarnation, whether we believe in it or not, and if you don't, this might be the wrong church for you, but we're glad you're here anyway. As Yogananda said, memory is not a test of pre-existence. Most of us don't remember what we were thinking 5 minutes ago or what we had for breakfast yesterday, let alone our childhood, being in the womb, or our past lives. As Krishna says to Arjuna, I remember them, and yet you do not. And Yogananda said, and again in his inimitable way, he said, think what a blessing reincarnation is. He said, at death, it smashes the car of life and gives us a new model to try to win the race of life in. And so we are here in this vessel to try to learn these lessons, which will help us to grow closer to God. And again, just as with the laws of physics in the universe, which exist with or without our belief or sanction, physics knew all about gravity and mass and acceleration before Newton and Galileo. So too, we can become spiritual scientists. If we chose to apply ourselves to study the laws of physics, we could perform those tests as scientists do. But we are here to perform the tests of the soul, which will help us to know God. And it may or may not be that we recall our past lives, but that is of little importance if we are growing in self-awareness, in greater peace and joy and fulfillment in God. Again, reincarnation, Yogananda gave this wonderful little story, which you can hear him tell on a recording from SRF, which he calls Reincarnation in a Nutshell. He said, there was a certain man who was born and lived his life. He was in very poor health and sickly until finally he succumbed to his disease. He died and went to heaven and met the angel of death and went before God and said, Lord, in my next life, I want to be healthy and strong and full of vigor. And so the Lord blessed him, and he came back and reincarnated in a healthy, strong body. But he was very poor, and in his poverty, he could not afford to feed his healthy body, and eventually grew ill again and died. Back to heaven he went, Lord, I want to be healthy and wealthy so I can support myself. Okay, he goes back again and reincarnates. He's healthy, he's wealthy, he lives a long time, but he's very lonely. He dies an old man and goes back to heaven, says, Lord says, what now? Healthy, wealthy, I need a good wife, a good companion. Have you covered everything? Yes, Lord. He's healthy, he's wealthy, he has a good wife, but she doesn't live a long time. She dies, he's lonely. back to heaven. This guy is stubborn, just like us. Lord, I want to be healthy, wealthy. I want a good wife who lives a long time. Okay, he goes back to earth. Healthy, wealthy, long-living wife, everything's great, but she nags the life out of him. Yogananda says, again, who else could say these things as he lay dying of super nagging? By the way, his wife left him. He goes to God. The Lord says, what now? Lord, I know all your tricks, he says. I want only you. Everything in this life has some red tape in it. I want only you, Lord. And so as humorous as this little tale is, this is the journey of the soul. And these are the same things that we chase our tail over lifetime after lifetime. I want a companion. I want to look this way or be this way. I want to be wealthy. And in and of themselves, these things are not bad. But when they are referred back to the ego, they bind us and keep us from that one fulfillment, which alone can bring us joy and freedom in God. So Yogananda teaches, and Swami Kriyananda explains, that the path of reincarnation is this journey, this quest of the soul that we are all on cyclically, like the spiral staircase, moving upwards towards heaven, towards God realization. And reincarnation, like the laws of physics, which interrelate to one another, has a twin principle or law, which is the law of karma, or cause and effect, that every action, every desire, attachment, every thought is registered in the grand cosmic ledger and within our own soul, our spiritual body, our astral spine, and that everything must be balanced in order for us to find God. Even an ice cream cone, Yogananda says, is enough to keep us separate from God. These simple desires to come back to the frozen food section are enough to keep us from our oneness with God. But the real blessing of this path and of Yogananda and our masters is the gift of Kriya Yoga, the techniques and teachings of self-realization, and specifically the pranayama technique of Kriya Yoga, which, as Sri Yukteswar says in the Autobiography of a Yogi, quickens human evolution, the practice of Kriya Yoga. And Yogananda goes on at length to explain this spiritual science, even saying remarkably that one Kriya breath, 30 seconds of revolving the energy up and down the spine, when practiced rightly, is equal to 1 year of natural human evolution. What an extraordinary spiritual gift that we can expedite our spiritual evolution. So it's not that we have to fulfill literally every ice cream cone, even though they have that power, but that we have this gift, these techniques, these practices and teachings, which help us to transmute our desires and attachments. So after years of devoted practice, lifetimes of seeking, we hardly recognize ourselves because we are growing closer and closer to God, awake in God. So the law of karma is ultimately a law of cause and effect, yes, but it is, in the last analysis, a law of divine love, of God drawing us back to our home in Him, in infinite love. I was thinking last week of the topic, the law of, or the promise, rather, of the scriptures. And as Surendra was sharing, again, from Yogananda's teachings, that God is not aloof, but is in fact simply waiting for us to turn towards Him in offering our love. And I was thinking that it can't be that God is merely passive in this process. It's not like God is loitering up there waiting for us, but that He is actively seeking our love, encouraging us, again, through this law of karma and reincarnation, blessing us. His grace is with us, drawing us closer to our home in him. And reincarnation, like any other teaching, can be manipulated or misunderstood. At best, perhaps to be a distraction. At worst, to draw us into spiritual confusion or uncertainty or doubt. And there are many bypaths, spiritually speaking, such as psychic readings or astrology, which in and of themselves, again, are not bad. They can bring us spiritual insights and encourage us along the spiritual path. But if they become a focus, as I said, a distraction, or worse, some kind of obsession, then we've lost sight of our one true goal. As Sister Gyanamata said, that we must keep our goal. She said, look at nothing and see nothing but your goal ever shining before you. So the goal is God realization. And reincarnation and the spiritual teachings are there to help us, but we must not mistake the means for the end. There is another man who once Yogananda was interviewing with, who thought he had some tremendous spiritual powers, some psychic abilities, and he sat there in a hotel room with Yogananda, screwing up his eyes and pretend kind of meditation, and he said, "Ask me where I am." And Yogananda played along and said, "Where are you?" And he said in big tones, "I'm on the dome of the Taj Mahal." And Yogananda said, "There's something wrong with your dome because you're sitting here in this hotel room with me imagining that you're somewhere else. You've developed your powers of imagination." And he went on to prove to this man, he said, "Why don't you go project yourself down to the hotel lobby?" And Yogananda, who of course had these psychic powers if he chose to employ them, they had a psychic off, and each described the hotel lobby as they saw it. This man made it up completely, and Yogananda described it as it was. And they went and saw that, in fact, this man had no psychic ability, but a vivid imagination. And Yogananda could, if he chose to, see these things. And the point is that we have to develop spiritual discernment. There are many fascinating things that we could learn about our past lives, about the influences of the stars and the planets. And again, these can be beneficial. But as Yogananda says in the autobiography of a yogi, that the wise man defeats his planets. He transfers his allegiance from the creation to the creator, and realizing his oneness with spirit increasingly, he is no longer bound or affected by matter. And so ultimately, we are here to transcend these things which bind us, not, again, to fulfill them or to continually seek after them or even necessarily understand them. I've always loved a little prayer from the great saint Sri Ramakrishna, who said, "Mother, I do not need to understand. Only give me love for your lotus feet." In a very Indian way, the spirit of bhakti, again, this law of love, is the ultimate lesson that we are here to learn on this seemingly endless journey of reincarnation and karma. It says somewhere in the Indian scriptures, incredibly, Swami Kriyananda would say this, that a certain sage described how long it takes to find God. He said, imagine a vast body of water, a lake, high up in the mountains where a little bird flies and comes every 5,000 years. It scoops a little water up in its beak and flies away. Every 5,000 years it does this. And the amount of time that it takes for the bird to empty that lake does not begin to describe the length of time that it takes for the soul to find God. It's inconceivable. Again, I could tell you that it takes 7 seconds for light to get here from the moon, 8 minutes from the sun, 100,000 light years across our galaxy, 100 billion across the known universe. We cannot comprehend these things with our mind on the physical plane, let alone on the spiritual plane. But we are here to understand the law of love that is not understood with the mind, but with the heart, through our self-offering, through our satsang and togetherness in community. Swami Kriyananda explains in The New Path, in the chapter His Last Days, about Yogananda, that as a spiritual family in the ray of Yogananda and these masters, that we are here incarnating again and again, not only for our own education and entertainment, but for the world and for one another, that we are a part of a web of spiritual consciousness, that this isn't the first time we've been here together, working out these lessons, having fun, supporting each other, when we fail, all the ups and downs of life, spiritually as well as on every level, that we are here to learn. We are here to learn together. And it's not meant to be easy, and it's not always meant to be fun, but it is meant to help us to grow deeper and deeper in God realization. And so let us remember that God is calling us back to Him actively through His divine love, and that we are here on a mission together. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, as Vishnu, as Spirit of God, He says, I incarnate myself again and again. I, the Supreme Spirit, incarnate again and again to uplift the virtuous and to destroy evil. And so it was that Krishna and Babaji came for that mission. Arjuna, in ancient times, they were Nara and Narayan. Here they are Yogananda. They have been Christ. When someone asked Yogananda if he was Jesus, he simply said, what difference would it make? The soul's journey is long, and we are here to find God. That is the focus of our lives. And so this is the big picture of our spiritual lives, that Babaji and Christ are in charge of the spiritual welfare of this planet. And we either believe in that, not with our minds, but with our hearts, or we don't. And we may go through periods of doubt or uncertainty, but as Yogananda said, loyalty is the first law of God. Our allegiance to God surpasses everything else in importance if we know and understand that God, through these masters, are in charge, and that we are a part of this great ray of divine light. I just want to share one more story with you from the life of Sri Chaitanya, another saint from India from medieval times. As a great master can, he saw into the lives of all of his disciples, past and present and future. And he was gathered with his disciples on one occasion, plumbing the depths of their souls and seeing what karma they had left before they could find God. And as he told each of the disciples on this occasion, I can see that after only 3 more lifetimes, you will reach God realization. Or for you, it will take 10 more lifetimes and you will find God. Or you're very near, and in this next life, you will realize God. It came to be the turn of one disciple, who all the other disciples knew or thought they knew, to be very spiritually advanced, foremost among all those in the ashram. And when it came to be his turn, Sri Chaitanya said, for you, it will take 1 million more lifetimes to find God. And they were all discouraged and confused by this, and that disciple went off to be alone. And after a little time, they approached him and found, surprisingly, that he was in a state of rapture, in a state of bliss in God consciousness. And they said, brother, didn't you hear what the master said? It will be 1 million lifetimes before you find God. And he replied, yes, didn't you hear? He said, I will find God. And of course, in their little play, he was exemplifying the true spirit of a devotee that says, it doesn't matter if it's 100 trillion lifetimes, I will find God. And in this example, he had God in that moment already. So no matter what karma is left that we may be facing now, in the next lifetime or the next, let us know in our hearts that we are very, very near. Yogananda said to those of us who are devoted, those of us here, we can be Jivan Mukta. We can be free in this lifetime. There may be some karma left, but that is our potential, nothing less. To one disciple who said, I don't have very good karma, Master, he said, don't say that. You have very, very, very good karma, even to want to know God. And so here we are with very, very, very good karma, with this opportunity to know God. Let's not waste it and give everything we can to the search for God together. Now, in just a moment, I believe we'll have that special surprise I promised with the children. If the choir and Janice would like to come up, please.